ITP 120 Mod 7 Week 2, and this is our last week together. We have the Module 7 to finish, which we'll get everything done for today. That shouldn't be a problem at all. Due next Sunday, and then the last thing we have is the project. It's a 2-week project as you go through and do that. The project does not have anything in it related to Mod 7. And so you can start it now. So once you finish Mod 6, I would just get rolling right into the project. When you get done with Mod 7, sorry, I would get rolling into the project. There is nothing from Mod 7 in there, but you want to obviously get that done first because that's due next Sunday. Don't forget this grade thing here. If you want a letter grade, they're going to automatically give you a pass, P plus P, N or something like that, whatever it is. I can't remember the letters. It gives you it here. But you want to go out here and pick that if you want your actual letter grade. Virginia Tech does not care. Okay, they will let you in the Virginia Tech MIT program no matter what. But a lot of you are getting A's. You might as well get your A as you go through. But you've got to make that decision and fill this in sometime early May, or else they will just give you a P plus for this course. And you don't want a P plus. All right, Mod 7, let's see what we got here. Task list, video instructions, we got that. There's your assignment. Zoom memo from last fall. Again, we did the same problems last fall. Some things are different. There were dates here. They did a different project than you did, so anything this says to have to do with the project, ignore it, because I like to change those out every so often. Exception handling, we are not covering. That's the one thing that I would love to have in Mod 7, but I just don't want to push too hard. So if you're going on, eventually you might want to watch that movie and look at some of those examples. For anybody that happens to be taking 220 in the fall, that's the first thing we'll do if you're sticking with me in 220 in the fall. I did this movie this last week because I had somebody ask me about how to do distribution. You'll find out with this module, I'm leaving you a lot more flexibility because it's our last one, besides the project as you go through. But I had a couple people, and again, we're in kind of a crisis time here, and so I'm trying to optimize the use of your time. And so I was more than happy to put a movie out here on how I would approach it. If you have a totally different way of doing it, go ahead, and it's all yours to do that. And then our normal review. The final project's out here. I had somebody text me and said, when can you start? And the answer is now. Okay, and so this is where you're going to submit it. 75 points is what it is, I think. Wait a second. Oh, I'm in the other section. That's kind of wild. They were actually going to do a final exam. I think they're really excited because now that they're not excited about the COVID virus, but they don't have to have a final exam. They're going to do the same project you are but let's get to your stuff. It should look just about the same. When we get down to the project, because I just copied that down for them. There we go. This is actually the instructions for the project. There's some start files. Be sure you notice they're there. That would be a great thing to know, although you can start it from yourself if you wanted to. I did explain the start files. There's a movie here that explains them, okay, because it tells you what I actually have in there. And I just put these movies out here maybe a week or two ago. So if you were looking at this before, they might not have been here. Zoom movie on requirements and sample output for the class project. And then there's a nice big list of sample output. I had a couple people in Mod 6 say, gee, it'd be nice if we had sample output. Believe me, guys, I'm happy to give you those kind of things. And so this is a long thing. It's a menu driven. And so it's pick this number, pick this number, pick this number. And so I did movies on the project, so I don't think we'll meet the next 2 weeks. The other thing is I do not help on this project because it is a replacement for the final exam. Now, having said that, I will help in some cases. I can give some really general hints because I don't want you frustrated. I don't want you really stuck. And so if you do want to ask questions, please do. It's just that I won't hold your hand quite as much on the coding. And I'm certainly not holding your hand quite as much on exactly how to do things. And so if you have questions, let me know. Again, this has nothing to do with Mod 7, and so it's material we've covered up to so far. So our goal for today is to get you rolling on the rest of the material from Mod 7. This movie that I actually did that I left you for last fall actually covered everything you needed for Mod 7. I actually saw a couple of you have already turned that in. I'm going, wow, that's cool. So what I will do today, I think, is just really emphasize and try to, again, I want to streamline what you're doing so that we don't spend as much time, because you've got plenty of other things to do in your life, I'm sure, with all of this going on as we're doing things when you're doing that. And so I will definitely make sure you look at that. What Mod 7 is about is two things. One is exception handling, which of course we're skipping. I mentioned that just a little while ago. Okay, we will have to do some. Okay, because when you talk about exceptions in Java, and I want to spend just about 5 minutes talking about exceptions in Java, there are two types of exceptions in Java. There are checked and unchecked exceptions. Okay, unchecked exceptions are the ones that you do not have to handle, but if you're going into production, you should. You guys have thrown so many unchecked exceptions in the last 14 weeks, okay, that your head's spinning. I know. Array index out of bounds exception, number format exception, okay, null pointer exception, all those lovely things. And what happens is when you are running your program, okay, those are runtime exceptions. And so when the program runs, it dies and you get all that red stuff at the bottom. You fix it, you go back, and that's great. But in production, you can't do that. And so the unchecked exceptions are ones that you don't have to handle. And I'll talk about what handling exceptions means a little bit today. Again, this is Mod 7, a lot of it's going to be copy and paste code, okay, of which you understand. Some of you will understand minimal, some of you will spend a lot of time understanding a lot of it, but we'll all get it to run. So that's the trick as we go through. So it's called handling exceptions. And unchecked, you don't have to handle in production, you probably want to. Checked exceptions, ones that are so egregious that Java says you must handle them, okay? And there are two main ones that I usually work with. One is IO exceptions, which is what we're going to talk about Mod 7. The other one is SQL exceptions, when you're trying to pull data out of a database. And there's a number of other ones. And Java says you must write code for that. And we will see what that code is today. And I'll spend a little bit of time talking to you about it. But we will do a lot of copy and pasting. So let me remind you, if you do a lot of copying and pasting, you will get stray imports. So go back and make sure. And most of you cleaned those up in Mod 6. A lot of you said you got them, especially when you were copying the bubble sorter, you were copying the search things from my search sort package into yours. You got those imports at the top. And the real bummer with those is you see them, but you've also got that package, so your Eclipse is happy. As soon as I import your Mod 6, I get a big red X because I don't happen to have that package you copied it from. So again, I ask you, before you turn in Mod 7, look at the top of every Java class you have and make sure there is not an import there that should not be there. And I can mention that when we start looking at code, because we're going to do that in just a minute here as we go through. So watch for those. So a lot of Mod 7 is going to be just copying and making changes as you go through, all right? Because the other half of Mod 7, besides exception handling, is reading from files, persisting data into flat files. As I mentioned in the movie, hopefully you watched from last fall, my introduction to that movie, because I just don't want to just repeat that movie. We're going to do something different today. But what I mentioned there is the fact that you've really got to look at copying the code over there as you go through, and then trying to read a flat file. A flat file, what is that? There's a variety of different types of flat files. A flat file, by definition, is something that is on your computer, not a database file, okay? Just a file that has data in it, okay? It might be text, it doesn't have to be, okay? And there are so many different ways to read and write flat files in Java. And so what we decided to do in Mod 7 is to do only one, and that's a text file, okay? How to read and how to write text files out. So your goal for Mod 7 is to learn how to read and write text files. You have two problems to work as all, okay? And they're both reading and or writing text files. Now, there are 100 different ways to read and write text files. Java.io is so complete, okay, that there are just numerous ways. This is the one module where you do not want to be Googling, probably, okay, because there are so many ways to do it. Now, I don't care that you do it my way, but I will explain the way that has worked best for me, and copy and paste from you will work for Mod 7. And so again, I'm letting you be flexible, but If you just kind of copy and paste my stuff, it's going to make it a whole lot faster for you. And then you can always go back and look at other ways to do it. You can even use a scanner class. Okay, I don't use a scanner class. Your book shows you how to use a scanner class. I don't use it because we get that error, and the error comes up in more than one place this time, and I just don't want to deal with that. And so the scanner class works sometimes, but not always. And so I'm going to show you the old standard way of doing it that works every time for me as you go through. There's an extra document here in Java IO. You can look at it or don't look at it. You don't need it to get through what we're doing. Okay, PowerPoints, you don't need it. You certainly can look at them to get through it. One of them is all on exceptions. I can't remember which chapter is which. The other one is a whole lot of IO, more than what we're going to cover. All right, so here's the deal. If we look at Mod 7, there's a variety of things here. Okay, and I mentioned this, I think, in the other movie, but I'll do it again. This exceptions here, okay, I'm not going to cover it all. That essentially is just indeed for that extra exceptions as you go through if you want to look at them. Those are the answers. You don't have those. Haha. Sorry, there you go. The book has some text file stuff. Look at it if you want to. Okay, we're not going to cover that at all. Okay, read-write objects. Read-write objects is what I used to use in Mod 7. And then this is where your guys' comments come out so well. I think it was last summer. People said, boy, this is just way too confusing. And I said, okay, cool, I'll rewrite it. And so last fall, I rewrote it into the simple read-write. Probably could be even easier than this, but this is what last fall's, the movie that I post out there for you, it is going over, and I will go over it again a little bit here, but we'll do a different example so we can help you. And then we'll spend a lot of time looking at the two problems you're going to work. I did that at the end of the movie from last fall, but I did it kind of quickly. And so I know some of you have been working on it, and I'm going to leave us some time at the end here to see if you have questions as we go through. But as you're looking through this, I would watch the fall movie, I would look at these two examples, and I would get rolling on the things we're going to do as we go through. So any questions on that? So far, so good. All right, let's look again at the examples. Some of you have looked at them, a couple of you have turned them in. You may not even be here with me today, and some of you may not have started, which is perfectly fine as well as we go through. The tutors are still out there. If you need them this week, I will be available too this week, so please let me know what we can do to help. I know some of you have given me good feedback on the tutors. I think I've had a few people have a little bit of problems. I think we've cleaned up some of the problems. We should be good. So again, oops, that's kind of big. So if you look through this, this is awesome. Okay, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. The idea is to read and write. Now, this part up here talks about reading and writing objects. We're not going to do that in our examples, but it's still not a bad thing to know how to do. And so there are some things I'm skipping. I last fall had how to read and write objects, and it was required in the final project. And it just got a little overwhelming for them. And thank goodness I changed your project, especially with how unique this spring has been to us. So I do think the project that I gave you is much more straightforward. I never say easy because then you feel dumb if you can't do it, but no, straightforward. All right, so really you don't have to read any of that kind of stuff that calls about implement serializable, those kinds of things, okay? And again, for anybody that happens to be taking 220, I will be going over all that stuff and picking it up there. What numbers in this doc should we start with? All right, so what I would do, good question. If I was doing it, I would start with number 17. Whoops, that says rerun flat file example.java. This really explains some examples that are great examples. Okay, good question. But they're ones that we aren't totally exactly related to what you're doing. So if your question, Ben, is where should I start because I want to get these two questions done, which is a valid thing to do. Okay, I would actually probably start right here. Okay, needed for your assignment. All right, because everything above that is just to give you some kind of backgrounds on other things you can do with flat files. And so I would start there, all right, when you actually do that. And so that's what we're going to go over today too. So let's look at the problems you have. And we're going to talk about this. And then again, that was in fall as well. So thanks for asking. That's a great question. Here's the first problem you're going to do. We are going to have a text file with a list of ratings between 1 and 10. Multiple values on a line, multiple lines. So this is a file that you have. Now, I haven't gotten, it's not a file that you have, I haven't given it to you. What you're going to do is just open up Notepad. Don't use Word, because Word injects some formatting you don't want. But Notepad, Notepad++, something that just does regular old text file, and write one up for you. Okay, here's the file that I use for my sample data. You could try that one, but yours needs to work for anyone. So point being, problem number 1 needs to work for any number of values per line and any number of lines per file. I don't know how many values on a line, and it can be variable, and I don't know how many lines there are. That immediately to me sounds like a while loop inside of a while loop. Okay, now the values are values between 1 and 10, and you can assume that's the case as you go through and do that. All right, when you work problem number 1, what you want to go and look at very carefully is read, write, doubles, multiple per line. That's where you're going to be borrowing code if you decide to borrow code. So that's for problem number 1. And I'll work one similar to that today. What do you want to do? You want to get this whole thing read in, okay, into something. Now, the question is, what do I want to read it into? What's that something I want to read it into? And that is variable. That's up to you. Okay, and so I left this thing really flexible. I didn't tell you how to do problem 17. I just told you what to do. And what you want to do is somehow get those numbers all read in. Give me a distribution being how many 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10s there are, and an average. I have no UML. I would assume you would have more than just a main method, please. Okay, because we know how to separate things out in a method. So I'm asking you to do good OOP, object-oriented programming, okay, with your methods and that kinds of things, but I'm not giving you direction what methods that I am expecting. And so it's kind of flexible. Now, that may be just kind of letting go of your hand too quickly. Remember, I hold your hand all semester and then I kind of just let you go. And so remember that there is an extra movie out here. It went. Is somebody's not muted out there, but that's okay as long as you're quiet. Life's good. This movie out here. And that just gives you a background on how I would do it if it was me, but you don't have to do it that way, okay? But what that says, just real quickly, because I want to get to some coding here, but I want you to understand first, is I don't know how many items there are here, and so I would probably read that data, however you read in data, into an array list of integer, integer. Remember, you cannot make array list of primitives, you can only make array list of objects. But we know that wrapping and unwrapping, Java can handle the int, the primitive data type int, okay, and interchange it with the class integer, and we're good to go. All right, and so in my example, I do it with doubles. You're doing with integers. It's almost the same. And so my suggestion, and again, totally up to you, is to just read it in. First step is to read it in. We want to do everything in small steps. And so, you know, I would have an array list where the first value in the array list is 1, the second one's 6, the third one's 8, the fourth one's 7, the fifth one's 2, the sixth one's 3, da 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 da. That would be step number 1, is to get it all read into an array list. Once I get it all read into an array list, I'm done with Mod 7 stuff. What I now need to do is use some concepts from mods 1 through 6 to try to figure out how to do a distribution. Okay, and the question was, how should I do a distribution? And the answer is, it's up to you. Again, I'm flexible. You don't have to do it my way. But in the movie, what I did was I made an array. And I made an array of integers, int, little int, that had in each entry the frequency of each item. Okay, and so how do you do that? Don't worry about it. The movie shows you exactly how to do that. And so what it needs to output is how many 1s, 2s, 3s, up to 10s there are in the average. Any questions on what I'm asking? Maybe not how to do it yet, but what I'm asking? We're going to look at some code. Anybody okay? Somebody tell me we're okay with at least understanding what we're doing. Okay, good, good. Second one, we're going to do some file encryption. Okay, some real easy file encryption, maybe not easy to code, but you could easily break this encryption, because what we're doing is we're turning off every little A into a B, every little B into a C, every little C into a D. Okay, we're encrypting this code as we go through. Capital A's will turn into capital B's. Okay, the question becomes what happens with Z. And again, that's up to you. That's an algorithm. Okay, you could make it an A. You could just circle it around to an A, or you could actually use the next Unicode character, which is probably what I would do. And again, that's what my suggestion is, and that's what I'm going to show you how to do. But if you want to do something else, you can. If you want to use a different encryption scheme, you can, but make sure you tell me in your text box that you're using a different encryption scheme when you're actually doing that. Because all we want to do is encrypt and decrypt. And again, how to do it, we're not concerned with yet. I want to know if you understand what you need to do. So you need to be able to read in a file. A file just has multiple lines, okay, of words or sentences or something in it. It could be War and Peace. Your program will work whether you put in Dr. Seuss or you put in War and Peace. It really doesn't matter. It should work. Okay, it should read in the file. It should print it to the console. Obviously, that's for debugging purposes only, but do make number 2 work, because obviously if you're if you're in the CIA, you don't want to be printing out your files raw form as you go through and do that. Okay, and this one, number 2, should look just like the flat file, just like the text file looks like. Same number of lines too. Don't make it all in one line. If I have 4 lines in my flat file, when you print it out to the console, it should look like 4 lines. Okay, and again, that's not going to be as hard as it might sound. Encrypt the file and write to the console. So again, I get those same 4 lines written out, except it's encrypted. Write the encrypted file to a text file. Okay, and then at that point, when I'm testing your program, I will pick number 9, which ends the program. I will then fire this back up. I will pick a number 1. I will pick a number 6 that reads that encrypted file, decrypt it, write the decrypted file back to the console, and number 2 and number 8 need to look identical. Now, if you don't want to end the program between those two, that's why I put in the clear the data memory when you actually do that, okay? And again, with an array list, we know how to clear out an array list. We did it with our baseball players. I think it was baseball players we used when we actually did that. Okay, and so the whole idea is that we're encrypting and decrypting a file when you're actually doing that. Any questions on what you're doing? Everybody understand what you're doing in number 2? Maybe not how to do it, but what you're doing in number 2. Somebody say, okay. Okay, good. Now, we don't have a blueprint and a driver. Okay, again, if you really wanted to do that, you could, but you certainly don't have to. So in reality, most of you are turning in 2 .java programs. Distribution.java, encrypt, decrypt.java. Okay, and that's it. But again, some flexibility. You see no UML diagrams here. Again, this had better not be. I would probably assume that you're going to have one method for each menu item or something, so you do good OOP. Okay, but again, I'm not giving you UMLs. It's totally up to you as you go. So that's the idea of what you want to do, be able to encrypt and decrypt this one, okay, as you go through. Now, if I was doing this one, there's, again, different ways people can do this one. I would probably do it almost identical to read-write doubles, 1 per line. Okay, and so if you're trying to get the most guidance from me, I would use this for the first program. I would use that for the second program as you go through. All right, so what do I do and how do I, let's go back, let's talk about that one in a little bit more detail, the encrypt, decrypt, okay, and then we'll really talk about how to do this. I've got this little package here. Please do not forget that is there. Again, that's to help you. That doesn't mean you need to look at it. I would probably do it when I did that, because the idea of encrypting and decrypting this thing is that I want to be able to read in a bunch of lines of code. Okay, and then what I want to do is I want to be able to encrypt it. So I would probably read in the entire line. And so let me get this. Let me go get I would just open up, I got Notepad++. Now is the time for us to have fun. We are, aren't we? Whatever, okay? Just type something in, I don't care. Okay, and then you can just do a file, and I'll use this, save as, and I'm going to save it somewhere. And some people have asked me what the ending needs to be, and it doesn't matter as far as Java is concerned, okay? I usually put things out here that I don't need anymore, and this is, I'll call it junk, .txt. Now, does it have to have an ending in txt? Probably not, but the only reason why we put endings on txt is because then Notepad or when you double click on it, you know, Windows or Mac knows what application to use to read it in as you go through. All right, and so this thing has 4 lines, and so if I was going to do this, I would make certain that I could read this in somehow. Now, am I going to read it in character by character, or am I going to read it in line by line? Okay, and again, I'm trying to give you guidance without confusing you. Okay, and so remember, you can do it however you want, but if I was doing that second problem, I would read this into an array list of strings, and that would be my first entry. I would read this into an array list of strings, that would be my second entry. I'd read that into an array list of strings, be my third entry. I'd read that into an array list of strings, that'd be my fourth entry. I would then have an array list of strings, would have 4 of them, okay, but in reality, it could have as many lines I put in here. And then I would encrypt this one and put it into a new array list. I would encrypt that one, put it into a new array list. That same new array list. I'd encrypt that one, put it into the same new array list. Encrypt that one, put it in the same new array list. And now I've just got an array list of strings that's encrypted. I write that out to my file for option number 2, or to number 2, I'd write to the console. Okay, for number 3, I'd write it to the file. Okay, and so I would go through and do that. So any questions again on what? I promise you I will get to how within the next few minutes. Okay? That's for problem number 2. I would do it that way. So I would read into an array list of strings. Any questions on that? Somebody tell me okay for now. Just to make sure you're with me. Okay, good. So now what the heck do I do with those? Well, right here, we'll show you. And we'll just go directly to version 2. This is code, again, you might want to borrow. I'm not saying you have to, but you might want to borrow it. Because notice what I have here is I have an array list of strings, okay, called lines. Now, this would be the one that you get from the file. Okay, so you just read in the first line, throw it in the array list. Read in the second line, throw it in the array list. Read in the third line, throw it in the array list. Read in the fourth line, throw it in the array list. You got it. This is the encrypted version. Okay, and so the question is, how do I go from 8 to 9? And that's the new stuff, and that's what I want to do. So notice what I did here, because I didn't want to do exactly your example, so I'm not reading it from a file. I'm just kind of loading up that first array list of strings. But if you could read it from a file, and I promise to show you how to do that, and the movie from last week shows you how to do that as well, is notice what I've done here is I've just put in a string and add it to lines. I put in another string and add to the lines, okay? And so it's going to give me my original array list. And again, it doesn't matter how many are in there. We love spring. I love spring. And I'll put this, don't you. Okay, there you go. So I can just print out the original array list, and we all know how to print out. Okay, hopefully we can print array lists in our sleep, right? For I equals 0, I is less than strings.size, I plus plus is not a print line, strings.getI. So that's going to print out my original array list. Okay, the next question is, how do I encrypt that? Okay, so what I'm going to do is notice I'm going to pass in the original list, and I'm going to return the encrypted version. And so this method here, which again, you could borrow it, just copy paste it, watch out for stray imports, okay, is that if I pass in an array list of lines, I can return an encrypted version. So how do I do that? Well, I create an array list of strings. This is going to be my encrypted version. I'm going to loop through each of the lines there. I'm going to get each line. It's just a string. And I'm going to go through that line character by character. I'm going to get each character. And notice how you encrypt it. The easiest way. Right there is your encrypting. I forgot my P, but that's all right. Encrypting. There you go. Is all you do is you add 1 to it. Because if you look at the Unicode value of letter A, it's 1 less than the Unicode value of letter B, which is 1 less than the Unicode value of letter C. Okay? And I got to add 1 to it, but then I got to get the character back, because if you don't cast it to a character here, you can get the Unicode value. Okay, it's going to be a number like 4275. I don't want that. I want the actual character. And then what I do is I get the first character, okay, right there. I encrypt it. I add it to this little string that I'm concatenating, that I'm all collecting together. So this for loop, okay, this is a for loop, 1 per line. Okay, and this for loop is 1 per character in this line. Okay, and then notice what I do is I add that string that I made, okay, to my new array list, and then I clear it out, get the next one, clear it out, get the next one, get the next one, the next one, return it. And so when I return this, and notice what I did was right here's where I called this method, is I pass it in the original and I return the encrypted version. And then I just print it out again. So if I take this and I run it, this is the code you want to look at real carefully for how to do that encrypting. Yeah. There we go. So notice there's my original lines and there's my encrypted lines. The I turned to a J. You probably didn't know this, you probably didn't care, but the next Unicode character after a space in the Unicode sequence happens to be an exclamation point. Okay, that's cool. Okay. The thing after a comma happens to be a dash. The thing after a single quote is a parentheses, whatever. The thing after a question mark is the @ symbol, but notice it's just an encrypted version. So now if I give somebody this, hopefully they can't read it. Now, that would be the easiest thing in the world for the CIA. It would take them about 3 seconds to decrypt that, because they can do it by, the way they do it is statistically they figure out, they know what is the most common letters, and then they can go in here and figure out which one of the symbols, if you do a 1-for-1 symbol thing. And so there's lots of better encryption schemes than this, but I just want you to have been exposed to one of them. I tried decrypting according to the video, but according to the video. Okay, so let's see if we can decrypt this. Here, Control copy, Control paste, decrypt, -1. There we go. Cool. So notice what I did. I just recopied it, because I'm now going to pass you in the encrypted version. Okay, and I'm going to return you the decrypted version. So just to make this, I'm not going to give you this code, you can kind of look at it, but the words are going to be wrong here. This should be D. This should be D. Decrypt now, because obviously I'm going to pass in the encrypted version, which is fine. Okay, and I guess I could either put a D here, huh? CRYPT. I didn't really need change that name of that. It would just bother me a little bit if I said oopsie. Control, what I just do? I don't know what I just did. Control Z. Decrypt. There we go. I was trying to save it, and of course, you know how that goes. All right, that looks good. And so if I now do that, and I encrypt the lines, and now if I go I guess I could put in lines. Let me see if I can. No, let's just make sure that you realize that it's going to be different. And so array list string final. I'll call it final. Final version equals new array list of string. And that one should be the same as the original. I just want you to prove to you that I didn't just get the original back. I'm actually, what did I do? Array, oh, I got it. That's good. Good, Wolf. Come on, you can do this. You can't type very well, but that's all right. There you go. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to encrypt it. Okay, so I get the encrypted version. And so what I'm now going to do is I'm going to say final version equals decrypt, CYPT, and I'm going to pass you the encrypted string because that's the one where I encrypted it, right? And encrypted cannot be resolved. NCRYPT. We need a Y in there, don't we? There you go. Okay, cool. And then I guess I'll print it out. Original back. If it works. Better. Here we go. Cross your fingers and let's run it. Uh-oh, what'd I do? Oh, because I didn't print out final version, I printed out encrypted. That makes sense. SION, there we go. Print final version, there we go. Let's see what happens. There you go, it's all back. Yeah, good question. No, that's fine, that's cool. Okay, there you go. So that's just essentially what you're going to use for your two menu items. So I would copy and paste that. So encrypting it and decrypting it, and it'll bring it right back to where you're going. All right. And again, you're going to get a ton of stray imports, so please check on those. All right, so let's go back and look at, so we hopefully at this point, if you look at what I just did here, I'm just trying to guide you as much as I can, and you look at what I did here, it will tell you what to do. I didn't mean to click on that, but that's right. It will tell you what to do after you get your array list of whatevers. The question is, that's great, but how do I get my array list of whatevers as I go through and do that? Okay, when you're actually doing that. And again, the hint is use that one for the first one, use that one for the second one as you go through. Okay, so what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to take that file I wrote somewhere, which is this guy right here. Okay, and let me get rid of punctuation just because of, and you'll see why I want to get rid of punctuations. It doesn't matter to get rid of punctuations for yours. Okay, but we're going to just take this. And what I'd like to do, okay, so here's what I'd like us to do right now, is we're going to do one that is similar to the distribution, because I think that one's the harder one. And then once we do that one, I will tell you how to adjust it for the other one, and we'll see how it goes through. But what I'd like to do, so what I'd like us to write together right now, is I'd like to take this file right here. I would like to read it in, okay? And I would like to list all the words alphabetically. How's that? Okay, case insensitive, why not? I want to list out all the words alphabetically, case insensitive. All right, that sounds like a deal. All right, so what would I do? I would come out here and I go, I have no idea what to do. No, that's not what I do. I probably would. But here's what I would do, and I would suggest that you do this. So we're going to, I will give you this program we do today. And so I'm going to come out here and I'm going to I'm going to get myself a package, and it's going to be called Zoom 419, which is today. That's cool. Okay, and I'm going to write myself a Java class, and it's going to be called Alphabetize. Alphabetize. Probably spelled wrong. Alphabetize. B-E-T-I-Z. Doesn't matter. Java doesn't care as long as you spell it wrong correctly every single time. There you go. Okay, so first thing I would do is, okay, cool. There's Alphabetize right there. All right, and again, I'm doing what I told you to do in that first movie in better detail, probably in that first movie, because you can stop it and watch as you go through, is what I would like to alphabetize those. And when I look at this, that means I have multiple things on a line. Okay, I have multiple things on a line. And so this one that I'm doing right now is probably a lot closer to this one, which is closer to distribution, okay, than it is that one, which is 1 per line as you go through. So I'm going to come out here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read it in. Well, let's read it in and write it back out. So if you want to read it in, you need the open read and the input data. If you want to write it out, you need the open write and the output data. Okay, so you need those methods for reading and you need those methods for writing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guy right here and I'm going to copy all this stuff all the way down to there. Now, when you do that, make certain you don't put it in here, because then you'll screw yourself totally up. You cannot put a method inside a method. So make sure you drop down below main, okay, when you're doing that. All right. And I assume it put in all my imports for me as well, which is awesome when you do that. It didn't put a stray import, surprisingly. It usually will do that if you're in the same project, but if you're not in the same project, it doesn't. So just because I didn't have anything in here, okay, you got to check yours. And what you will see when I say it, and again, the problem is this is closed up most of the time. You can't tell what's in there. You want to open it up, okay? And what it might say, which mine doesn't here, but it might say input, read, write, doubles, multiple per line, okay? And then you've got a real problem because I don't have that when I run yours. So just open that up and make sure that your imports are fine as you go through. All right, so here we go. So what is this open read? Okay, and I go through that in the other one. What you do is, and it's got a lot of classes in it that we just haven't done. So at this point, I really think we're copying and pasting just because I don't want to push too hard. I want you to just have the experience of this, and then you can always come back and study this harder as you go through. But the one thing I don't want to do is hard code a path. Where is this going to show up? And so when I run this thing, if I run this program up here, just so you can see that, and I did that for you in the movie, this is called a file dialog box. You must use that in Mod 7. Okay, you cannot hard code and say that the file is at C:/whatever/whatever/. Okay, this is a file dialog box. How do you get one of those file dialog boxes to show up? And notice this is for reading your file in. Pick the location for reading your file. And there's two parts to this. There is the path, so you can come in here and say, oh, it's in here, and it's in here, which it really isn't, but that's okay. But this is your path, and then the file name, and then you hit open. So there's two parts to this. There's the path, and there's the file name, okay? This is your file dialog code, okay? And that's how you set up that file dialog. This thing right here is what it says across the top. And so again, if I run this once more, notice that right there. That's what that says, okay? And then how does it know that you want to read instead of write? It's file dialog.load. The other one would be file dialog.save. Okay, and the file dialog just happens to be a Java class, and that happens to be the constructor for the file dialog class. It then sets that file dialog box visible to true. Okay, and again, you don't have to understand all of this, but catch as much as you can. We just copied and pasted it, so I don't have to worry about understanding it, but I want to. Go get the file, go get the directory, add those two together. That's the new file. Check to see if it exists, and if it doesn't, die. Remember, that's how you kill a Java program, because you can't read from a file that doesn't exist. Okay? Now, what this returns is what's called a buffered reader. What the heck is a buffered reader? A buffered reader is a Java class. I know that. I've never seen it before in my life, but I know it's a Java class because it starts with a B and a capital B and a capital R. It's the one that allows you to read in text files. Just believe me, that's the case. And how do you create a buffered reader? By using this code right here. Again, just believe me. I mean, you can go back and look all the stuff up later. I just want to make sure we can get these to run right now. Okay? And so this is your try catch. Now, what's a try catch? What the heck is a try catch? That's that exception handling. Okay? You try to do something and you catch the exception when you do that. You cannot read from flat files, text files, without using this stuff. But we just copied the code, okay? And it's getting near the end of the semester, and I'm concerned about the virus, so I don't care about how this really works right now. I'll go back and look at it later. I just copied and pasted it, and it was good to go. Okay? When I want to write it, it's the same thing. Okay, but notice I have file dialog.save. And what this method returns is a print writer. A print writer is what will write out a text file. Now, again, I would not Google this if I were you, because there are 10 different Java classes that will write out text files, and you handle them differently. So again, I'm not trying to insult your intelligence. I'm trying to get you through this module as straightforward as we can. I just copied all 4 of those. I haven't changed any code yet whatsoever. I haven't changed any code yet whatsoever. Okay, so here we go. So now that I've gotten those things open, I want to input data. This input data is to read in data from the file. This is where you're going to start making changes. All right. The example I have here, go through and look at it. Okay, and I go through that in the movie. It has doubles in it. This method, this file here, or this program here, is to read in this file. And that program is to read in this file. And notice they're doubles. In this case, there's 1 on each line. In this one, there's multiple ones on each line. And that's what the difference is. And so this one is similar to your problem 1, your distribution. This one's similar to your encrypting if you're assuming that each line is a single string, which is what I suggested you do. Okay, so here we go. So if I come back here and I look at my code, so let me close up my text files here. Okay, and I'm going to alter this now. I don't have an array list of doubles. I have an array list of string. Okay. So array list string, and I probably want to change the name of it. I'll call it words. How's that? And you don't have to change that, but you might want to change that. Equals new array list of words. Okay. So I'm adjusting this for this file, and our goal is to alphabetize it. Okay, cool. I don't need this. Okay. There's my buffered reader. There's my open read method. Notice I'm calling that open read method. Don't worry about the try catches. That's all that exception handling. And again, I got movies out there. I mean, I'm not trying to insult your intelligence. I got movies out there you can watch on that stuff. But it's just got to all be wrapped in these try catches. And so that one we went through. So that's cool. Okay. Read in the first line. Okay. Now let me think about that. Do I want to read in the first line? Yeah, I want to read in the first line. Okay. And so I'm going to read in the first line. Now, what is the delimiter? What does that do for me? Well, the question is, if there's multiple items per line, what is separating out each item? Is it a comma? Is it a space? Okay, you could hard code that in there, or you can ask your user. All right. In our case here, if we're trying to alphabetize these words, it's being separated by a space. If we got this one here, the delimiter would be a comma, because notice each comma is what's separating. That's what's called the delimiter. It delimits the individual items from one another. I'm going to have the user type that in. Where am I at? Oh, I'm here somewhere. I don't know where I'm at. Where am I? Oh, I'm on alphabetize. There we go. Okay, I'm going to have the user type that in. I could hard code that. Okay, so how many lines do I have? I don't know. How many items per line? I don't know. While loop inside of a while loop. This is while there's more lines. This is while there are more items on each line. So that still works for me as you go through. Okay. What is a string tokenizer? A string tokenizer is a Java class, starts with a capital S, capital T. Again, there's multiple ways to do this. You could actually use the split method in the string class if you wanted to. I just like the string tokenizer because all it does very simply is it says take this line, this string, and separate it every time you see one of these. Okay, separate every time you see one of these when you actually do that. I must have screwed that up. Does that one really run? It might not, because I may have changed the code, because yours should have had the word. I think I was showing them this in the fall. I may not have changed it, but this one I would put delim here, because whatever they told me was a delimiter is what it's going to delimit by. Okay, in my case, I'll hit a space. All right, while it has more tokens. What does a token mean? What is a token? This has 5 tokens, because when I separate at spaces, there's 5 pieces. This one has 3. That one has 1. That one has 4. Okay, so a token in this word, in this terminology, is just a piece of the line when the string tokenizer breaks it up. All right, there was a question in Piazza, a great question, about this double dot parse double. I don't care if the file looks like this, okay, or if the file looks like this. Java sees this as a string. And when it breaks it into pieces, if I tell it to break this into 2 pieces at the comma, Java sees this as a string, okay, or text. So a text in Java is always turned into a string. Now, when you do your distribution, or when I do this and I try to read this into a double, I got to take that string and turn it into a double. And I got to take this string and turn it into a double. All right. And the code I used, and thank you who asked the question, Piazza, because that means you're looking at stuff ahead of time, okay, is double.parse double. In the double wrapper class, there is a method called parse double. And what it does is it takes a string and turns it into a little d double. Okay, so what you're going to have to use for your problem 1 is integer.parseInt. All right, so in this case, I don't have to turn into anything. That's even better, okay, when you actually do that. And so what I'm going to do is I am just going to take, okay, and I'm going to copy, so these are the only things you're changing when you do your application, is I'm going to read mine in. It's already a string, so it can automatically go on this array list, which I called words up there, okay? So while it has more tokens, I'm going to say words dot add st dot next token. Next token says go get the next piece. Now I had somebody in email, and it should have went into Piazza instead. Why put a trim on there? A trim is a method in the string class that says if somebody had done, and it won't mess your file up if somebody had done this. Because if Java takes this and tries to turn it into a double, it's going to blow up because of that space. And so trim is just a method in the string class, you may have already seen it in the string class, that just deletes all the leading and trailing spaces. So it just kind of cleans up the code, all right, when you do that. And so that's not a bad thing to do. I hope this program runs when I get done with it. That's cool. And so all I'm going to do is, while it has more tokens, go get the next token, trim it off, add it to my words, add it to my words, add it to my words, add it to my words. Okay? Read in the next line. Okay? While the line doesn't equal no, nope, I got another line. Make a string tokenizer. While there's more tokens, take each one, add it, add it, add it, add it, add it. And you can already see in distribution, you're going to do the same thing, except you're adding integers. Okay? Next line. Break it into pieces. Add each one. And so when I get down to here, there you go. Okay? This should have 1 word per line. My suggestion to you is do the same thing and have 1 integer, one word per entry in the array list. Okay? And so I've now broken it up into lines. Now for the second one, you don't necessarily want to break it up into lines, but I've now got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 things in my array list when I get done. And that's all it took to do that. Those are the only changes I needed to read that in. All right, now it's not going to like this. words. Oh, that should be not be. That was really dumb here. Somebody didn't tell me that. It should be a string. Yeah. Now you're happy? Okay, cool. So notice in main, what am I going to do? Let's see, where did main go? Ooh, there's main. Main's got nothing in it. Okay. Remember that this input data returns array list of strings. So I better get myself an array. Oops, I better get an array list of string. S-T-R-I-N-G. We call it the words equals. Now I don't have to call open read because input data is calling open read. So all I have to do is say input data. There you go. That's all it takes. Cool. How's that for a deal? All right, now let's see if that really worked. We print. I know how to print an array list. For I equals 0, I is less than s dot size I plus plus this out s dot get I. There you go. All right. And I don't have it writing it back yet, but this thing should, my favorite word, should still run. All right. So here, let's see if it does. Run as a Java application. And the thing that you have to be a little bit careful from is if you have typed anything in here, and if you hear anything today, let me know this. I mean, listen to this, because this will frustrate you. This guy will show up behind Eclipse if you've ever typed anything in here. And Rachel, I'll get you, Rachel, I'll get you in just a minute. Let me finish this while I think about it. And so if you see the dialog box, that's great. If you don't, that's why I put this here. The dialog box will be here behind Eclipse. Make sure you choose where to read from. All right, so let me go find this. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go to, where did I put that? Desktop. I got a Virginia Tech stuff. There we go. And I think I called it junk. TXT. Oh, I didn't spell it weird. Where's the delimiter? Space. Oh, she probably just told me that. What happens with you decide the rest of the punctuation mark. If you deleted the rest of the punctuation mark, it have the question mark. It's at the end, so it'll just, I could, and oh, let me show you that in a minute. Let me get that. Okay, so what I did, guys, of course I forgot, which is really stupid, was I wrote a method and never called it. So I went to call print the words. That would be good. There you go. It's always nice, okay, if you call your methods after you write them. There you go. That would be a good thing. That's too easy. Junk, where are you? Here you are, junk. With the delimiter, space, bingo. There you go. They all printed out. Now, she asked about punctuation marks, okay? And actually, what I have my second semester Java students do is do the same thing, except they have to do a frequency for war and peace. No big deal. How many times does the word war occur in the entire book, War and Peace? Okay, and that's what Rachel's kind of asking about. What about other punctuation? There's a way that you can tell it to delete all punctuation. Or even cooler, what you can do if you knew you just had two different punctuations, for the delimiters, what happens is you can, in here, wherever it went, let me find it. Open, no, input data here, okay. This thing here, and that's part of the reason I really love this, this is a string of delimiters. So if you actually typed in space, comma, question mark, slash, it would, when you actually answer this question when it runs, it would break every time it found a space or a comma or a question mark or a slash, which is really pretty cool when you actually do that. Yeah, great question. All right, now how about if I want to then alphabetize this, okay, when you do that. And I'm going to do it, now I should probably do a separate method because everything should be in a separate method, but we're running out of time. And I did module 6. Ooh, that's cool. Okay, now the problem is going to be, this is going to collections, okay, and it doesn't know collections because that's in java.util, so I got to import that. The problem here is going to be that it's going to be case sensitive, and I won't fix that, but you guys could. That would be easy. We did that before. You just have to take every word and to uppercase, right? So you just have a loop through here. You just have a little method, convert all to uppercase, right, when you want to do that. But I'm going to actually be case sensitive. It'll be interesting to see if I'm case sensitive. Do my capitals come before my small letters, or do my small letters come before my capitals? And we'll figure that out when we go. Okay, cool. Now, what about open write? Same thing. How about open output data? Ooh, boy, that one's pretty straightforward. Because all I got to do is make sure I pass in an array list of string. Okay, I read it and I get each one. When you actually do that, I'll call it nums, even though it's kind of silly because these aren't nums, these are words, but that's all right. Hey, that's the only thing I should have to change. Cool. To write this thing out, that's the only thing I should have to change, okay? And so is all I got to do now is I got to call that, that's output data. Okay, cool. And so I will now call output data, oopsie, data, okay, and pass it the words, and then I'm going to print it out. Hey, looks pretty cool when you actually do it. All right, so let's see if this works. How exciting. Okay, now it's asking me to write it out. Okay, and notice how the dialog box did appear behind it. Okay, when you actually do that, is because you've typed here, and so the cursor is sitting there, and so go all the way to the very back. Go all the way to the very, very back. The very, very back. There it is. That's my house in Arizona. All right, and so I'm going to write to Virginia Tech. I want to write to a different one. I'll call it junk2.txt. Then we can go look at it later. Save it. And notice they printed it out here. And notice it is alphabetical. Cool. Okay. Notice here it is alphabetical. And it turns out that if you look at the Unicode values, the capital letters come before the smaller case letters. And that's why we've got them alphabetically here and then alphabetically here. And if I come out here and I go to my desktop, and I look at Virginia Tech, and I look at Junk 2, there it is. There it is. Okay. And so reading and writing text files, not a lot you need to change. You just have to understand enough so you can alter code that is there. Clear as mud. Questions? I will give you this one. Okay, that's like the first one. Okay, where you want to do multiples per line. Except you don't have to do on the first one, you don't have to do the writing. You just have to do the frequency and then print it out to the console. And so you don't have to do the writing. In the encrypt one, you're reading it in, encrypting it, and then writing it out. So in the second problem, you have to do both a read and a write. Crystal clear, all right. I'm so glad. Shouldn't be too bad. And I do try to talk you through some of that code. It's not bad code. I'm not trying to hide it from you. It's just that there's so much in there, and I just don't want to overwhelm you. And part of the reason is I don't read and write from text files real often in the real work that I do because I use databases, you know, to store most of the data as you go through. But it's always nice every so often to be able to read and write text file. And there's something else called serializable that's even cooler at times to use in Java, but that's something that is more of an advanced topic. Anything else I can do for you? It has been a unique semester, to say the least. It really hasn't lost us too much, but we've got, boy, it's crazy. This world's crazy right now. To verify the collections is what alphabetize the array. Yeah, remember we use collections.sort. Remember this, we used this in mod 6. Okay, now, a good question. I mean, and Rachel's probably trying to allude to this. I know she was thinking about it in the back of her head. Thank you. How can I do that without writing a implement comparable like you had to with insurance and writing a comparative method that some of you struggled through and managed to do great on? It's because we're sorting strings. And the string class in Java already implements comparable, and it has a compare to method, which happens to be alphabetical by the Unicode value. And so I'm just using exactly what we did in Mod 6, except that Java took care of the implementing comparable for us. And so that's pretty cool because it does it. Java implements comparable for a lot of its classes so that you don't have to do it. So it knows how to sort strings, words. Other questions? What else? Good to go? All right, guys, it's been a great semester. If I can do anything for you, we still got 3 weeks left, and I'm still here, okay? 24/7, like normal, answering questions, that kind of thing. We are not going to have movies for the project because, again, that's your project. That's your replacement for the final exam. But there are movies out there for you to look at, just about what I'm expecting, those kinds of things. And I will take questions in general about what's going on in there. And again, it does not cover Mod 7. It covers 1 through 6. Anything else? All right. Thanks for a wonderful semester. It's been great. Listen, the ITCS world, once this economy comes back, my friends, is going to be stronger than ever. You are in a great field. The jobs will be there. They're still there. I've still got partners who are asking for people even during all this. So keep it going and let me know what I can do to help. My pleasure, totally. I've really, really enjoyed it. Thanks, guys. Stay safe, and let's hope we get this economy back open soon.